Welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. We've got Cynthia Perazzo with Sovato. How are you doing today, Cynthia?
I'm doing terrific. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, been excited to have this episode. We chatted a little bit recently up at Device Talks, but for starters, I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about what you guys are building. The company obviously is a remote robotic telesurgery platform, but tell us a little bit about how it got started and how you got involved.
Super. Love to tell the story. So I have known Yulin Wong, my co-founder, for many years. And I got a call from him in 2021, and he asked the question, do you think now's the time for telesurgery? And of course, I knew that Yulin had been involved with the Lindbergh operation, which was the first real telesurgery conducted from New York City, where Dr. Jacques Moresco was sitting at a console in New York City and removed the gallbladder of a patient in Strasbourg, France, across the Atlantic. Of course, a very expensive surgery, but proved that telesurgery was feasible. And so Yulin calls in 2021 and says, is now the time. At that time, I was working with a large group of health systems on trying to drive digital innovation at scale in the middle of COVID. And of course, telehealth was, the most important application, including remote monitoring and anything around consumerism. It was really about how to get increased access when access was limited by this pandemic. So not only was access a problem, but bringing surgery back and really trying to address how to maintain commercial share in a market that had been terribly disrupted. So we were working on a lot of strategies to solve these problems caused by COVID. So my gut reaction was, absolutely, now's the time for telesurgery. Let's dig into what would stop this from now being the time. And so we spent a lot of time really trying to understand, what are the forces that were required to make telesurgery work at scale. And one of the main impetuses for Yulin's call was some physicians from the Mayo Clinic who said, we really need to bring surgeries back, and we really don't want patients to come to Rochester. And we spent a lot of time talking with those surgeons about what does it take to make an amazing surgical outcome. And that was really the jumping off point for how do we make telesurgery work, is how do we create a great surgical outcome.
I've heard you talk a lot in the past about telesurgery or robotic surgery 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Can you talk a little bit about the context of that and how Sovato fits into that whole continuum of surgery?
Yes. So when surgical robots were first developed, there was a push for a military application, really understanding that access was a problem and that being able to provide battlefield care might be enabled by robotic devices. And then quickly that moved into what are the commercial applications. And the real focus was trying to replicate or improve precision for the surgeon and make it easier for the surgeon to perform intricate operations. And so it was about precision and access to narrower anatomy, et cetera. So that was really version 1.0. And there was a great value proposition in version 1.0. We're in the middle of what we call version 2.0 right now, which is really helping the surgeon by bringing more information into the surgical arena. So imaging, AI, decision support, all of the additional information that surrounds the surgeon so that they can create a better outcome of the surgery. In addition to the version 1.0 value prop of precision, now you have information and decision support. And we think the next wave, which telesurgery, remote procedures will bring, is access. It's a very new value proposition for robotic surgery, but it's very much enabled by the fact that we have created a dynamic robotic surgery market with, led by Da Vinci and intuitive surgical and computer motion back in the day, to bring version 1.0 to market and get broader adoption, which really stimulated innovation in version 2.0, and as well as just the number of new robots coming into the market for not only additional robots doing soft tissue, but endoluminal, endovascular. The types of robots coming into the market make this a really exciting time to think about how do we use these devices in all their glory to extend those value propositions, to more communities, more patients, so we can have better outcomes clinically.
Yeah. What you bring up a good point. So can you tell us a little bit about like what you think the in-game benefits would be to not only the physicians, but also to the hospitals, the facilities, and then maybe the payers? I think the benefits to the patient are obvious, but what's the value proposition you're trying to deliver to those three different stakeholders?
Right. So if you can create access by enabling remote robotic surgery, the benefits to the patient are many. One, we know that in many instances that robotic surgery is a form of minimally invasive surgery, which has, better recovery times, less pain. So a lot of great benefits just from extending robotic surgery to patients who may not have access to minimally invasive surgery today. Second is being able to have care close to home. Traveling does place a burden on the patient and their family. So being able to stay in their communities creates better opportunity for recovery, better access to your emotional support in that time. And very importantly, we know that having a high volume of a certain type of procedure leads to better outcomes. That's true not only in surgery, but in other, when you have high reps, high volumes, that your outcomes will be more consistent and better. And so for us to be able to extend remote robotic surgery out to communities and use the same teams who can have more reps doing those types of procedures, we believe and know just based on evidence that those patients will be receiving better care in the end. So great value propositions for the patient, which is kind of the North Star. But why would health systems get involved in this? Many health systems, have an imbalance of their resources. It's very expensive to recruit surgeons and proceduralists, and it's very difficult to get them at all the places where your patients are. So in many places, the constraining resource is the surgeon. Not enough surgeons with that specialty or that expertise. And then there's the opposite problems in other geographies where you have a lack of ORs. So where the ORs are scarce. So matching the demand and supply. So a community hospital may have underutilized ORs. So how do you bring a high volume surgeon into those underutilized ORs to increase capacity utilization across not only your surgical workforce, but also your ORs? That enables you to grow. That enables you to have more capacity to bring more patients in. And if you're able to go to a community that's underserved, you can create more sustainability for those community hospitals because the facts are that surgery and procedures are high margin and keep the doors open for many facilities and enable those facilities to subsidize unprofitable service lines that are required to provide community care. So you've got growth, load balancing, and at the end of the day, enabling a physician to stay in one location and operate in multiple venues of care increases productivity. So increasing productivity of a very important scarce resource. So those are the value propositions for the health systems. And then for the surgeon and the care teams, being able to stay in one location, being able to practice top of license all day long by performing more care, more surgeries in one day, is a really great value proposition. I've heard many stories presented one early morning to a robotic surgery committee for a health system. And one of the surgeons dialed in on Zoom and he said, "Are you kidding me? I just drove 3 hours to do 3 cases and I'll be driving home tonight 3 more hours. If I could have done this remotely, I could have done 6 or 7 cases today and not had 6 hours of windshield time." So, it is real that we, put our surgeons and proceduralists on the road. So those are the main value propositions. And
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said about health equity too, bringing care into underserved populations so we can increase the equity of care that we bring to those community.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially because with robotic surgery, the physician's not at the patient's bedside anyways, right? There's already
Right.
a distance between the console and the patient. So really that distance, if extended, doesn't really play significantly into the physician workflow of performing the surgery. So it makes perfectly good sense. What's been the biggest challenge that you guys have come across in building this technology? Is it establishing the network? I got to imagine there's all kinds of security challenges and patient data challenges. What's been the biggest challenge today?
So the solution lies in bringing the ecosystem together. So, the threshold problem to solve is how do we enable the robot to work safely at distance? So effectively cutting the cord. Almost every robot is connected. Their patient side arms are connected to the surgical console, may or may not be a tower in the middle with a cord, may or may not be proprietary. So how do we cut that cord and enable that robot to function? So there's, as you mentioned, there's latency that gets added when you move distance. There's cybersecurity issues that get raised, whether they're real or not. You have to address them and demonstrate that you're taking care of that. Um, there is concern, a lot of concern about what if something goes wrong, and the places things can go wrong. We've really tried to deconstruct, from even when you're just cutting the cord, the proverbial backhoe. There's always, what if someone puts a backhoe? And in fact, we've had that happen. Do you have the right redundancy? Does it work every time? Do the teams in the room know how to respond when there's a crisis? The good news is that ORs across the globe have adopted innovation year over year. And so we are used to working through these problems in a very methodical way. So we have, I think, put to bed the latency question. We've done wet lab demonstrations at 2,000 miles with imperceivable latency. And that includes video, audio, room-to-room communications, as well as the robot signals, the control signals, status signals, et cetera. So latency is not going to be the biggest issue. Restoring situational awareness is a technological challenge. We believe we have solved that. In fact, we had one of the physicians who did one of the 2,000-mile procedures say that she felt that actually the situational awareness was better because she was looking only at the surgical console and a screen that had the pictures of the
Mm-hmm.
room. So she didn't have to slide back and look over to talk
Right.
to the people in the room. She could actually do it while hands on the robot. So she actually felt in some instances that the situational awareness was, and the communication with the team was better. So that was an unexpected finding for us, but it is important to really restore that and make sure that everybody can hear each other. There's a lot of audible signals in an OR. So the cautery's on because you can hear it. When you step on the pedal, you can hear it's on. Even
Right.
though the robot has something that's telling you, most surgeons are listening for it. So how do we make sure that the audio is appropriate? So we've been doing a lot of testing on different audio solutions, from headsets, microphones, built-in things, attached things. So
Sure.
that's an important challenge. Um, and I think, because we're bringing an ecosystem together, we have really taken a standards-based approach. So as we've talked to dozens of robotic manufacturers, we are asking a lot of standard questions and saying, to really understand, where can we create a common way to plug in to a highly curated network so that there's no doubt that it will work and that it will work consistently. So we are applauding the efforts by the robotics companies to lean in and create standards. They're working with us. They're working with organizations like SRS and SAGES and ACS on standards all the time. So we think standards will emerge not only technical standards, which will probably be the first things you'll start to see and that we will rely on, but also clinical and operational standards will help to create consistency on how remote surgery programs roll out.
Yeah, that you bring up an interesting point. So the last I had heard, I think there's over 207 robotics companies out there right now. As you had mentioned, endoluminal, hard tissue, soft tissue. The market is getting very robust. Will the platform be agnostic? Will anybody's platform be able to jump in and along those lines, what would prevent like an Intuitive from coming in and taking this on themselves?
Yes. So our goal is to make our platform agnostic and make it very easy for any robotic surgical platform to plug in. And our reason for doing that was lots of conversations with health systems and their fear that with the proliferation of robots and then adding on a remote capability, that they would have multiple networks to contend with and that their IT and telecom staff would not be able to manage. My co-founder Yulin Wang has been in the telemedicine business, since 2003 and dealt with a lot of health systems. And one of the things that he brought to the conversation very early on is we have to make it very reliable and easy to manage for the health systems because they've got mission critical stuff going on all day long, and dealing with everybody's network to manage remote programs will be a showstopper. So part of what we started developing early on and have now put in place is a system that a health system can adopt and that any robot company could plug into. And yes, any robot could do their own solution. What we have found is, that nobody really wants to. Building a robot's very hard. And keeping a robot growing and expanding. I mean, you've seen that most robots, even the newer ones coming to market, want to be approved for multiple indications. So that means a lot of instrumentation, new features. So building and maintaining a network is not in their core competency. Building the other infrastructure to manage the ecosystem of the remote players, also not in their wheelhouse. So we feel they're leaning in to create something of a utility, which is what Sovato's building. Standards-based, everybody understands the rules of engagement so that it can be expected and that the robots will be competing on their features and functionality and their ability to make it easy for the surgeon to perform outstanding surgeries and gain great clinical outcomes, not on the infrastructure to manage the ecosystem of the players.
That would be a complicated and immense lift to, like to your point, getting a robot to market, and then that's not the beginning of the end. That's the end of the beginning. Then you've got to figure out how we're going to scale everything and not only drive adoption but utilization to be able to put together the backbone on which that platform is going to perform telesurgery would be an immense lift. I kind of liken it to the executive search model, actually.
Oh, yeah.
You think about it, it's like companies could do that, but that's not their core competency, and it takes so much time. It's a lift that's really hard to have going on in the background, and easier to pay somebody to come in and do that for them, and somebody that does that on the routine basis. So
that's a great analogy. Start using that analogy for why you might need this type of expertise in the mix. All these great robots already.
Where are you guys at in the regulatory process? When could we realistically see something like this hit the market?
It's a great question. Also one that we get quite frequently. So we've had, we're in an ongoing dialogue with the FDA to understand what the classification of the Sovato technology is, as well as what the robotics companies and the health systems will need to do to have approved devices in the market in the United States. So we are in the process of having pre-subs to really define that. We have commitment from a robotics company to move through that process together. So our expectation is that you will see the first 510(k) filed for remote-enabled robot in 2025, with the expectation of, a commercially available remote enabled robot in 2026.
Wow, that would be amazing. What have you guys started thinking about reimbursement and what that could look like, and what would that potentially entail for not only the facilities but the physicians?
Yeah, and that is probably that's the money question, right, Mike?
Hmm.
And we believe that in the current reimbursement model, that remote surgery will work. And you kind of have, two ends of the spectrum on the types of procedures. So on very simple procedures that are high volume, we believe that the remote surgeon will bill the professional fees, the location where the patient in will bill the institutional fees. The margins may be lower on these procedures, but there will still be margin available because you have to have a capable team available, and you probably won't want to have. You may even have to have a general surgeon to begin with, either as backup or in the room performing, as a co-surgery. On the higher end cases, like some of the complex colorectal cases, we believe a co-surgery model may emerge, and that the assistant surgeon who's in the room with the patient can bill an assistant fee, or even bill a full professional fee based on their role in the case. And in fact, we believe the co-surgery model is going to be really important for exporting skills to new markets, so that you have a highly skilled surgeon supporting a surgeon who's very capable, robotically trained, could probably manage 80% of the case, but in today's world would send that case 90 miles to the academic medical center,
Right.
and lose the whole case entirely. And then that patient wouldn't have the benefit of being in their hometown. Now that surgeon, very capable surgeon, can keep that case and have the expert participate for the part of the case that their expertise is needed. And both surgeons may be able to bill for the professional fees, because they're both playing an important part in a very complex case. If you're in an IDN has the opportunity, particularly if the surgeons or the proceduralists are employed by the health system, which I know isn't the case for all. But in those situations, the IDN has the opportunity to create the economic incentives with new models. And we're really excited to dig into that with, if you look at bundled payments and other value-based care models that we've experimented with in the past. So we think there's some germs of new incentives that an IDN has the opportunity to work with. But in my dream world, like where I started, I was like, the real opportunity is to create surgical carve-outs where you could create real expertise and offer that to payers and offer that to communities, partnering with community hospitals, creating a network of the best physician, so that you could get access to that amazing, high volume surgeon no matter where you are. So, creating kind of a carve out, like kind of the modern version of a disease management company of the 90s
Yeah.
based
Yeah.
on
Well,
surgery. So
yeah, and there's definitely going to be a level of upskilling that will be going on with you'd have the expert, conducting that small portion of the procedure, and then eventually you would think that those physicians that probably could do 80% of it now eventually might learn to be able to do 100%, and then that's an on-site physician that can now do that procedure at that facility and doesn't need the tutelage of a mentor or a
that's
more
actually the next
seasoned
wave of
physician.
telementoring. Telementoring to date has not involved someone remotely moving the instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine a world where in a co-surgery model, they're both moving the instruments
Right.
and caring for that patient. So each are learning from each other and watching
Right.
technique, and can talk through technique. Here, let me take the control and show you how to lift that tissue.
Right.
So you're exactly right. The other workforce that gets upskilled in this process is the care team in the room, who will likely do more robotic procedures than they otherwise would have. And we may even see the invention of new types of teammates in the ORs. So
Mm-hmm.
There are health systems who rely heavily on PAs in their robotic programs. Mass General is one of those. And, I think they are setting the stage for, new workforce and new licensing
Yeah.
capabilities that could change reimbursement as well as we get, categories of team members who have more consistently have the skills and have ways to credential them for first assist roles or, remote robotic assist.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
that's a new title. Like
Yeah.
that could be a real
100%.
great career development for workforce.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we see a technological revolution like that, we see the onset of new positions and new careers that are created as a result of it, right? I mean, uh, you and I are both old enough to remember when we didn't have careers such as web developers
Right.
or whatnot, or software engineers, and so yeah, no, I think there's a whole new commerce that could come out of it, which is exciting. I want to get you out of here on time, but I'm always curious. What's next? I know you guys are head down, just trying to get this platform established, get it to market. What does the future look like for you guys? What is there a potential for like a standardized robot? What do you guys envision down the road?
Well, what we're not going to do, but we think that could be very exciting is a universal console.
Yeah,
There's a lot of debate about whether that's feasible, whether the manufacturers will enable that to happen, but that, probably won't be Sovato's um, mission, but it could enable remote surgery in a really interesting way. What I am actually most excited about is bringing care to underserved communities, not only through community hospitals that are existing, but also in clinics that are developing. So, we're going to make this a strong commercial business. That's for, our mission first and foremost, but we are aligned with a not-for-profit called the World Telehealth Initiative
mm,
that Yulin Wang founded in 2017 with Sharon Allen, and they are bringing telemedicine to many, many underserved communities, including Ukraine and Rwanda, Kenya. And so I imagine a world where robotic companies will be donating robots to these communities, and surgeons and proceduralists will be donating their time to care for these communities and train surgeons and proceduralists in those communities so that this type of care can reach really everywhere. So
yeah,
that, I think, is the future we should all be working towards. So we get it right in our commercial models, and then we bring it to the rest of the world.
I love that. I love that. We'll be sure to get you back on the show at a later date to get an update, and that's an incredible mission to strive for. So. Really appreciate you coming on, Cynthia. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, and excited to watch where you guys take this opportunity. It's a heck of an undertaking, but I'm confident you guys will deliver.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's great to be with you, and excited to be on your podcast.
That's it for this edition of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. We'll catch you on the next show.